Among all of the weapons we already had, some weapons are quite strong that no matter what kind of scenario, we will always go with those weapons, while others, we could expect they never get in touch forever. Especially those early games weapons, when you use it for a few times in the very beginning, you will just sell those, right? But thanks to the incarnon genesis, some of the weak weapons or the early games weapons managed to get a flip side on them, making them manage to be viable enough even in the mid or late games. And surprisingly, Kunai is one of the weapons that can manage to get this incarnon genesis to make himself into the incarnate weapons, and oh boy, could you expect these early games weapon manage to do such high damage that even have the potential to just one-shot almost everything? Indeed, this time around, we want to see that how does Kunai become so strong after the incarnate genesis has been applied. So, without further ado, let's hop right into it. Kunai as one of the early games weapon, its stat is not very surprisingly very well, as you could expect that those stats were only available for those early games, but why you want to pick this weapon when all the other weapons has a great stat? But with the help of the incarnate form, it can become a very good weapon as all the stats are overall increased, and the incarnate form allow Kunai to automatically seek headshot on the enemies. Wait a second, you means that it can automatically seek headshots on the enemies? Yes. When you shoot kunais that just quite close enough to the enemies, they will automatically seek headshot on the enemies, make it easy to deal good damage on the headshot. This also means that both secondary deadhead and galvanized process will make its uses to the fullest potential when you want to do high damage. Right now, you can do a good amount of headshot damage without the requirement of aiming very hard. It's a good thing, right? Why no one really know about this very well? Now, let's try to take a look at all the evolution perks of Kunai has, shall we? For the second evolution perk, you have a choice between Swift Conclusion and Sage Resolve. Swift Conclusion allows Kunai to have plus 70 of the base damage and plus 1200 of the base damage if the opponent's health is less than half. This usually will be a good thing, but based on what I could tell, if your Kunai build is very strong, that it can just one-shot all enemies, then do you think that the extra damage will require at all? I mean, those extra damage will become totally overkill if you want to do the finishing damage since you already load that half of the health. So I think that this is not a good evolution perk that I will pick on. Instead, Sage Resolve will be much better as not only it provides us a base damage of 80, but it will also give us another 100% of multi-shot, but at the condition that only channel abilities is activated. These abilities are quite limited to a few Warframe as only a few Warframes has this channel ability. But if you want the channel ability can be applied to all Warframe, I highly recommend that you can substitute Gloom into the frames that you want to play, as Gloom is one of the channel ability that can be subsumed. While for a third evolution perk, both increase in projectile speed and reload speed are not really necessary since for Kunai it's already fly quite fast and reload quite fast since it's a throw melee, so both of these won't do very well. Instead, increase in magazine size are the one that we will be more focused on since increase in magazine size will improve your quality of life. And for the final fourth evolution perk, Accelerating Volley is one of the evolution perk that we will not take as well, since increasing fire rate doesn't really help at all, as we don't really need to shoot that fast. We will focus on the two evolution perk, which is one being Survival Edge that increase both crit chance and status chance by 12%. Another one being Death Threat Trigger, which will increase your crit chance by 40% and crit damage by 1.4 multiplier for 4 seconds if you equip from primary. Usually, you might think that Survival Edge might have the good one, since increase both crit chance and status chance will be very well. But I found that for the Kunai build that we will building later on, we won't be using the status chance a lot, and we want to make it into a very high crit weapon. That's why Death Trap Trigger will be used more, since the increase in crit chance and crit damage will be very well. Especially we will be using our primary quite a bit, so I think this one will be much more better. So for our Kunai build here, because we know that it will automatically seek headshot if we enter the incarnate form, so both secondary deadhead and galvanized crosshair will be used quite a lot. Especially we will also want to make it into a high crit damage weapon. And because of using the crits very well, Sharpened Bullet is also quite advisable since it can also further increase the critical damage since we don't really have anything else, so I think this is good. The multi-shot, faction mod, as well as the crit damage and crit chance mod are all required. But we will be using Triple Bullseyes instead of the Prime Crit Chance mod since we know that Fire Rate doesn't really need to use that much, so we decided to just go with Triple Bullseye. As well as Prime Heater Charge because we want to further increase the damage at all aspects, but we don't want to just use Corrosive or what. Just one Prime Heater Charge is enough. And the last slot here, we have Galvanized Shot for the CO damage. You'll find that I intentionally leave this mod as the last one, because if you want to go with the full crit damage build, you can just switch Galvanized Shot into Lethal Torrent that increase the fire rate and multi-shot. We don't care the fire rate, we just want the multi-shot. Because for the Kunai incarnon form, it has an increase in multi-shot, which basically just makes it very well. So increase in multi-shot as much as possible were indeed very good. But right now we want to make good use of the primer we want to use later on, so Galvanized Shot is here. The trick here is that we're not gonna try to let Kunai do this priming job. All we want is just the CO damage. This also means that our primary weapon will have to be a primal weapon, and in this case we'll be using Cedo. Cedo as a primer will be doing the excellent job in this turn. So all we need is try to mod with the Viral as our main element, since Viral is the one that we want to do increased damage against health, and we will have other elements based on what you need, and most importantly we want as long status duration as possible. And for the damage rotation, it's a very simple one. Cast the channel ability to get the multi-shot, and charge up your Kunai to get it into the incarnon form, and before you doing damage, switch to your Cedo and prime the enemy. Prime the enemy and switch back to your Kunai to get the extra crit chance and damage buff. Now you can just shoot it through and you can see that it will start building the buff very high. And switch back to your Cedo again if you think that the duration is about to rise out. Then you can use your Cedo to prime the enemies again, and finally use your Kunai again, and you can see that the damage can rise up to the astounding of 1,000,000 damage. Can you expect that an early game weapon can doing this high damage? Yep, this time around, Kunai shows that it is possible. If this is your first time watching, why not leave a like and subscribe to my channel so that you won't miss out any newest contents from me. Why not leave your comments down below if you got any ideas or thoughts you want to share with all of us. And that's it from me, and as always, I will see you all next time. Bye bye!